I want to talk to you about something that I've noticed that I should have anticipated, but didn't because there's so many variables out there that you can't anticipate. But COVID-19's impact on the sorry ass diversity efforts that are happening in tech. It has hit us hard. And let me explain what I mean. And we have some examples of this. Um, when COVID-19 hit, first of all, it proved that many of these arguments about not being able to work from home were bullshit, because when it became essential to the survival of the company, um, within days, if not a matter of, I mean, at the most 2 weeks, most companies were able to shift to remote working, even though that had been there. We need this. And that right there has been a huge reason why our diversity efforts were failing, because particularly when you're talking about Silicon Valley and the cost of living, to require people from marginalized communities to uproot themselves and their families to live in an expensive ass city is just makes no sense. In most cases, and excuse me if my glasses kind of, because it's raining, it's starting to rain. But that's one aspect. But the one aspect that I really want to talk about here is how who gets. So as I'm looking at my clients, my leadership coaching clients, I'm looking around at the community, and I'm seeing messages about who's getting laid off at companies, tech companies right now. It's really interesting, and if you really pay a close attention, who gets labeled essential and who gets labeled non-essential and can be laid off. Um, and most times, those people who are considered essential are engineers. And for people who are listening to this who are not in code, when I say engineers, I mean computer programmers. That's who is fundamentally, overwhelmingly being targeted or labeled as essential in COVID-19, and their work is safe, or their jobs are safe from being laid off because they're not in the box of non-essential. So that brings me to two different things. So one of the things is why I have a problem with people using terms incorrectly and calling the work that programmers do, coding, as technical, and all other work in an organization is non-technical. That's bullshit. We all have technical skills. Their coders' technical skills are specifically around a specific technology or suites of technologies, and somebody else may have technical skills in marketing, sales, promotions, um, HR, R&D. So everybody, we need to stop saying that. The word technical is about skills, and people are very technical. It's what we need to say is programmers are technical with technology, a specific set of technologies. Because even when you look at HR, they have a technology suite. Their work is based on technology. If you look at the root definition of technology, if you don't see technology as just computers, right? So that's one thing. That's how you get this essential and non-essential. And what is coming to light, and again, which I should have seen, is in our efforts. Okay, so let me back up. So who is overwhelmingly the dominant participants in the programming in that space, who are now considered essential? Cisgendered white men. And so when you make everyone else, first of all, when you put when your recruiting has been about getting marginalized people or racial diversity in other areas of the company, not in programming. When you say that programmers are the only are essential, that's what you're left with. You're left with the people who have always traditionally been in the program, which are white men, right? So that's what we're going to be left in many of these companies. And when they've gotten rid of their non-essential folks, they're going to be left with, again, where we started from, back at square one, with a room full of white dudes. That's problematic. And then you see, and so this is my concern with a glitch. that when Anil and his team, based on the stuff that I saw on Twitter, how they deemed who was essential and who was non-essential, the overwhelming majority of people who were cast as essential were programmers, right? And I get that, because if you're software, programming is necessary. This is where the problem comes, though. In our diversity efforts, we've only cared about gender, which means that any diversity on all white men programming teams has been filled with white women and Asian women. Problematic. So what we're gonna see when we go back into when we start to ramp back up, and if people go back into the offices, they're gonna see a bunch of white dudes, white women, and South Asian women. That's not diversity. We need to do a better job of ensuring that every space in our organizations are diverse, not siloed, but every station, every department is diverse. And that does not mean bringing Black and brown women in to do the administrative work. That work is very important. It needs to be done. It shouldn't be always relegated to the folks who you in society as a whole treat as being of service to everyone else. You're propagating white supremacy. You're propagating anti-Blackness. You're propagating racism within your teams and within your organizations. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, because I want you to pay attention to this. I really want you to pay attention to this, because I've seen it. I'm seeing it. That as you tech leaders, think about your bottom line in COVID-19. What are you communicating to the overall community of who's most important, who's essential? Because what you've proven before is who's essential. And I want to back up, and I want to talk about this recruiting part, because I really want to hit this. So the reason I wanted to bring up white women and Asian women here is because, as the default for diversity, is because if you look at a conference like Grace Harper, over 20,000 women in attendance, the vast majority are white women and Asian women. The vast majority of their speakers are white women and Asian women. Time and time again, when that conference is happening, I see Twitter threads of Black and brown and indigenous women feeling so out of place, so uncomfortable. There is no inclusion for them in that spaces, because they're not a part of the diversity in that space. This is my problem with Grace Harper. Outside of the fact that it is for profit and they take in so much fucking money, and yet they require their speakers to pay to speak. That's a whole nother thing. So even in efforts for diversity, to improve diversity in tech amongst women, we are fucking that up. We're creating barriers and burdens for Black, indigenous women of color. And we have to stop that. So I really want to just have you look out for. And if you're a tech leader, and if you care about being anti-racist, if you care about profit without oppression, I need you to start thinking about, who am I saying is most important to my organization? What do they look like? And if they look like cis white men, if they look like white women and Asian women only, then you have a problem. You have a lot of work to do, because this COVID-19 is a setback. It has set us back some years. It's going to be some hard work getting us back to the bullshit of the diversity that we have, let alone beyond it. And the only way we're going to really be able to do that and fundamentally do it quicker is if we're all adopting the hashtag causeascene guiding principles, which are: tech is not neutral, lack of inclusion is a risk management issue, intention without strategy is chaos, and we have to prioritize the most vulnerable. Couple that with a perspective, or look through the lens of anti-racist and profit without oppression business model, we will do a really good job. We will do an exceptional job of improving diversity. And mind you, I have not said anything about inclusion in this video, because diversity is about recruitment. Inclusion is about retention. We have a horrible fucking record at retention, at inclusion. So yeah, I just wanted to unpack that and talk to you and get people to thinking about who are you seeing in a pandemic, in a global pandemic, who is important to you and your organizations. Thank you. Have a good day. Goodbye.